Jayvee here from Jayvee Designs. Welcome back to the channel, and if it's your first time, welcome to the channel. So today's 3D print, we're actually looking at Black Cat, and this is Black Cat from the amazing Spider-Man 607. This is another super iconic comic cover from the pencils of J. Scott Campbell, and if you frequent this channel at all, you'll know that I'm the most massive J. Scott Campbell fan out there. Anytime I get to paint up anything of his, I try to make sure it looks like it's jumping straight from the page of the comic book. Now, this one here is a absolutely beautiful cast, and this one comes from CBS Labs. Now, I'm not actually sure if this one is in production anymore. I was really fortunate. I've got a friend of mine who does a lot of 3D printing and has had a lot of 3D prints just lying around. He got this one from CBS Labs, I think a couple of years ago minimum. Saw my Mary Jane and was like, oh, I actually want you to paint this one up for me. So I felt very fortunate that I had that opportunity to do that and bring another one of J. Scott Campbell's comic covers to life. So really tried to make sure I did that. I've also customized the base to make it look a little bit more authentic. So I'm going to go through all the processes of how we got Black Cat to where she is now. We got Motley Crue on the t-shirt. Come with me, we're going to have a look at how we got Black Cat, Amazing Spider-Man 607. Okay, Rockstars, if you've seen any of my other videos, you'll see that I like to get through the prep phase pretty quickly. I don't like to bore you with too much of the filling and puttying and things like that. And in this stage, we can see we're all primed, all our parts are primed, and we've completed that primer phase. Now, I will say, if you've got any questions about any of that, by all means, please put those questions in the comment section, and I'll be happy to answer anything I can. But I do try to skip through this pretty quickly and get onto the more exciting stuff. Now, what I will say is I've once again used my favorite base coat of primer, and that is a white primer from Army Painter. Okay, now I've used a white primer once again, and I tend to go with that light base coat. I'll say it again, for anyone that might have missed my other videos, I'm a very big fan of starting light underneath, so I like to go with my lightest colours underneath, then I build my shadows and highlights, build from there, then if I need to fog anything back, I can. I find that much more beneficial for the way that I paint, and that's the way I tend to have been taught with some of my airbrushing over the years. But I think this was a really good one to have a light coat underneath as well, in particular, because what we see is we have the legs and the face, which are going to have a lot of skin tones, and the hair, which is white. Now I'm going to put a few tricks in that white hair to make it more comic book like, but essentially it's white. She has a white pearls that she's carrying. Now the suit again is going to be a classic Spider-Man suit of red and blue. I will do some metallic work for the blue, and I may put a black coat underneath that. But there's a lot of red on there, and I find that red can look really washed out if you have a dark colour underneath and you're having to put a lot of coats on. So by having that light coat underneath this as well, that allows that red to be nice and vibrant. Now, one thing that somebody had pointed out, they see this purple on the top of some of my joinings and in some of my joins, and just a quick word on that, that's Humbrol mask oil, so just your liquid mask, and what I do is I tend to put that on all my joints that I'm going to glue down the track for a couple of reasons. One, because if you paint it, the paint actually gives it a few extra layers and can make that fit a little bit tighter, which is not ideal, and the epoxy resin I put in there to stick it together does a good job of that already. And number two, probably one of the more important ones, it tends to stick a little bit better when it's resin on resin. So I find that if I'm not sticking paint over the top of it, I find that resin on resin just sticks it. So I paint fully the process with that on. It can stay on as long as you need to, peel it off, and then I'll stick them together, and I find I get great results from that. But that's just a really quick word on the prep phase, guys. Again, I don't want to bore you with too much, so come with me. We're going to look at some skin tones and hair color, and we'll see how we go. So we're moving on to the hair. I've obviously shown you the primer coat. I've now also put a base coat of white over all the hair pieces as well. You obviously can't, it doesn't look too different because it's just white, but it does have quite a different finish on that. Now, what I'm actually going to aim for here, I'm not going to just leave it purely white. If you can have a look at the image that I have here of this particular piece, you can see what they do in comics. They tend to use blues to actually highlight blacks and shiny stuff in there, and also through whites. Now, it's a very light blue, and so I'm going to use some light blue on the tips and through the shadows. And what I'm going to do with that is going to use this Vallejo wolf grey. Okay, so this wolf grey, and this is a beautiful light blue colour, but it's really quite light as well. So I'm going to highlight some of that, then I'm going to aim to soften that back a little bit, and then if that looks pretty good and I get it to where I want it to, then I'll dry brush some extra white over the top of the highlights. So hopefully we'll get a really good finish from all of that. Just those slight hints of blue, just adding a little bit of depth to the white. I am going to have to use some artist interpretation. I don't want to go too blue with it because she doesn't actually have blue hair. It's just highlights basically within it. So I want to still make sure that her hair is very, very white. Black Cat's got very white hair, but we're just going to, give the tips a little bit and just give a few little shades and shadows in there, just with that light wolf grey. So we'll see how that goes, and come with me. We'll see what it looks like. So I'm just letting these pieces of hair dry now, but just so you can see, I'm really happy with the way it is. There are hints of that really soft blue in there, which is exactly what I'm after. That wolf grey is such a great colour, and it's perfect to highlight that. And the look I'm going for is that you want to add some depth and shade, but you don't want it to detract from the white. So you still want it to look white, but you also want to have those hints of blue in there, and this is actually really good. And in person, I can't capture it perfectly in the light, but in person it's really, really spot on, just as the way I want it, because I do want it quite subtle and more subtle than the image. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to let that dry, and then I'm just going to dry brush some of the highlights in white and just bring a little bit more of that white out, but overall that's a lot of the hair, and we're going to make sure we dry brush and go from there. Righto peeps, the first word on skin tones is that I've base coated everything first, everything that needs to be flesh based. And what I've done there, I've used the same colour scheme that I used on the last one, and we've based it with light flesh straight from the bottle from Vallejo. I love that colour, and I love it as a flesh because I can really bring it up, tone it back, shape it up, whatever I need to with my detail airbrush. Now, the next step that I did with Mary Jane, I'm skipping out of this one, and this one I used this pale flesh from Vallejo as well. I'm going to skip that because that's got a real pinkish tone in it, and Mary Jane did have a pinkish tone to her skin. Black Cat doesn't. She's got that real 70s Californian pin-up girl classic style where she's got more of a tan. So I'm going to skip that and hopefully have some slightly more sort of tan shades in there. So where I will go next is this green stuff. Well, this is also their pale flesh, but this has some deeper browns and different tones in there, so that's a really nice one to use. And then I'll go with probably one of my favourite colours, this Army Painter Cobalt Skin, and I really like that to get some depth in there and some real darkness in the highlights. If I need to, and if I really need to go darker at any other highlights, I will go with this model colour Sand, which I quite like, but I'm very, very minimal use on that one there, and it's really just around some of the highlights. I'll suss all of that out, and then where needed, I'll use this Elf Flesh from Vallejo, and I'll tone anything back, give it a few highlights, and go from there. But as we can see, really, really nice base coats on there. I'm really excited to start the flesh tones. This is one of my favourite parts. And we'll take it from there, we'll put everything on, and we'll see what we look like when we get back. Alright, so just a short little update. We've put all the highlights and shadows in on the skin tones with the colours that I recommended in the previous section, and really happy with the way that's come out. We've got three major sections here, and if we take a look at the face first, we can see we've got some nice darker colours, a hint of rose once again in the cheeks. We've got a nice light streak all the way up, and that's where the hair will be parted. And then we go quite dark around here once again where the hair is going to cover, and we have a nice shadow forming across where that fringe is going to come across. So if we look at the real image, we can see we have the same thing. We have this darker shading here, we have this nice light streak down here, goes darker again, and we have this shadow casting from where that hair is and that fringe is going to be. So I've tried to do exactly the same thing. She's obviously going to look quite different once we paint in the mask and the teeth and the lips and the eyes and put the hair on, but really happy with the shadows and everything on there so far. Again, she's a slightly different tone to MJ, which is what we wanted. We wanted a slightly more tan look. She's definitely within the same family if you put them together, so they don't look drastically different, but it's just enough that she's got her own look and her own tone. Okay friends, so what we've done here is we've made a fair bit of headway on the face sculpt and the head sculpt. It was one of those things that I got into a bit of a groove, and I didn't get much video footage of this because I tried a few things, got into a bit of a groove and just kind of kept going. So what we can see, and hopefully this will come up a little bit here, she's got her funny little sideburns on the side there. We've got that colour shift that we spoke about before. We've also done the lips and put a nice gloss coat on those. With the teeth, I actually just put a satin coat on those. So they have a little satin coat just to give it a little bit of a difference. And it's probably hard to see, but we've done the eyes as well. And she's got that really nice ice blue through the eyes. And then what we're going to do is just test fit the hair and just kind of see how it all starts to look together. So I'm just holding the hair in place at the moment. I've got to take some bits and pieces off, but what we can see is that there's some really nice soft blue in that hair, and there's some really good white streaks. And when we have the white hair on the face, it really helps those colours and a lot of the shades pop as well. So really happy with the way she's coming along. Once we put her all together, we'll have a really good look at that, and you'll be able to gauge it even better. So really happy with that so far. We're going to move on to our next little bit and see what we can do next. So stay with me guys, and we'll see you soon. So for this next bit guys, I'm actually going to start the red on the suit, and what I'm actually going to do here is I'm mixing up my base coat red, and often I put it straight into the airbrush, but this particular time I might actually need a bit of it, so I'm going to just fill it up a bit at a time and just make it a little bit extra, and then if I need it, we're going to go from there. Now the base coat I've gone for is, it's quite an orangey red. I've gone for this Mecca colour, and it's a straight red, and it's got quite a bit of orange in it as well, because she does have a little bit in the suit. I'm actually going to, with my detail airbrush, add some softer bits of orange, and then I'm also going to darken some areas that need to be darker as well, and have some darker reds. But this will be a really nice base coat, and once all that's done, I'm going to hit some highlights with some, I'm going to add some white and make a light pink as well. But just a note on that, I don't always mix it in a cup, or sometimes mix it straight into the brush, because I might need a bit more. I'm going to go to the cup. So we're going to take it out to the airbrush room, and we'll see how we go. Okay guys, so we've finished giving her a good coat of red, and this is just our base colour. It's a very orangey red from that Mecca range, which is exactly the base coat that I want. I'm also going to feed in some more little bits of orange where I need to soften some areas, and then I'm going to put some darker reds in there as well to make it a real red shade, and then I'm going to highlight with some sort of pinker areas as well to bring out some of those softer shadows and softer highlights. So I'm going to do the whole highlighting section next with my detail airbrush. I probably won't get a lot of that on video, but we'll show you once we've finished all of that, and we'll see what you think. Righto gang, so we've put a lot of the highlights, the shades, the tones, the colours all over the red, and I'm really happy with it. I've really tried to hit some of the high points just as they are on the real image. So we can see it's a fairly soft red. It's a very soft red. Some of the main red you can see underneath, that's going to be covered up anyway, but it's quite a soft red, and I may even need to go in and put some lighter highlights again in once I've done all that, but I'll gauge that as we go once I've put the other darker colours on the side and painted in the black spider and also all the webbing. So okay guys, moment of truth now. What we have is I've put some airbrush putty over the red portions, and we've painted her completely black. Now the reason for that, we understand that the Spider-Man suit is actually blue, and which shade of blue to go with has been the question of the day. Now, when I look at the image, the Campbell image of this, it's quite dark, and she's got lots of dark highlights to really resonate in that blue. And she does have a Sammy Raimi version of the Spiderman logo, and when you look at Raimi's suits in the movies, they are quite a dark and deep blue as well. Now, I've tried a few different things. I've gone with some metallics, and I've tried lots of different options. So I've got the airbrush loaded up. We're going to put that on there. I've done some testing, so fingers crossed. That looks really good and gives the suit a bit of a pop. We'll see what happens when we get in there. We'll see you soon. Okay, Rockstars, so as you can see, we have the body complete, and we have that really nice metallic blue shining off in all the right areas, leading into that really nice soft red. We've got some nice highlights through there, and we can see all the webbing done as well. The webbing, I used a micron pen to actually get in there, smallest nib I could find, I think it's 0.03, and I really like that because the original image has those spider webs really quite fine, and I'm able to get that comic book look by getting those really quite fine. And as you can see, when we turn her all the way through the suit, nice fine spider webbing and really good metallic blue work. There is some shading and highlights in there, so that actually shines off really, really nicely. Now we can see the jewellery has also been done, as well as her nails. I've tried to match those to the colour, and it also sort of corresponds a little bit with her lip colour as well. And we've put a bit of gloss over those, gloss highlights. So everything so far is coming out really, really nicely. I'm now going to move on to starting to glue all the pieces and put all the bits together. So we started the process of piecing Black Cat together. She's looking great. I'm really happy with how everything's coming out. And what you can see is we've stuck her head down, as well as started piecing the hair together as well. So the side of her hair, the front of her bangs. I then have a back section to put on as well. I'll probably have to put a bit of gap filling. I'll probably use some white milliput for that. But that'll be very, very minor, just to make sure that there's no little gaps in that. But so far she's looking great, so really, really happy with the way that she is coming out. Now, I do get asked quite a bit what I use to piece my models together, and I use a couple of different things. What we can see down here in what I call the glue room, is we can see I've got these two containers here, and that is basically it's a two-part epoxy resin, and that's called Megapoxy. It's a super strong, almost marine grade glue. I tend to steal a lot of my dad's stores. He's actually in the furniture and woodworking game, and he uses it a lot to fill his gaps. It can be sanded back once dry, and that sands back, and that dries to a rock hard finish. So I use that in all my key slots. I find that by using that, I pretty much don't have to put supports in my models. I find that is support enough, and it's ridiculously strong glue. So when you mix that together, it goes into this sort of really light yellowish paste, which is great to work with because it's not too runny, and so that goes in my key slots really, really well. Now, saying that, like I say, it does take 24 to 48 hours to cure properly, so I give that time, and in the immediate term, I put this Loctite super glue. I find this a really good super glue to use, and I put that all around the areas that I've cleared. And once that's got it locked down just initially, this guy dries over time, and I get a really, really good strong bond. So very, very happy with how that tends to work, and as I said, I don't need supports. So that's just a small look at the process of that. We're now going to move on to the base and have a bit of fun with that and see where we go to next. So what we're doing here is we're just cutting out some silver vinyl. That's so we can get some shimmering underneath the diamonds. Also, so there's no issues with any of the diamonds sticking to the wood and any of the adhesive with that as well. But also, I want to give a little bit of shape, and I've actually cut that out and looked at the original image for a bit of a shape and tried to go with that. Okay, so she's been glued to the base, and we've popped the vinyl down. The idea now is just to let that dry, and then what I'm going to do is come over to some clear Gorilla Glue and put that all over the vinyl, and then hopefully I'm going to pour some of these acrylic crystals, these little fake diamonds, all over it. I'm going to have to build that up in a few layers, but hopefully that gives me the exact look I'm looking for. And we'll see what happens next. So stay with me, guys, and let's go and have a little bit of fun. So the idea here, guys, I'm going to use my 5-minute epoxy here. I haven't gone for something that's too fast setting because I want something that holds a little bit. And I'm going to do it bit by bit. And over the top of the silver, I'm going to place some of that glue. I may have to do it in some layers, and then I'm going to sprinkle some diamonds on there, plastic diamonds. And the reason I've actually put the silver underneath is A, to give it some shape that I'm aware of. I'll go add a little bit of that, so some diamonds are going to fall outside of that as well. So it gives it a little bit of shape, but also underneath it actually looks silver underneath. So if I miss any bits underneath, you may actually be able to see the silver, and it will kind of all look like it's shimmering, and that's the idea. So fingers crossed, and we will see how we go. Okay guys, so this is where I'm just going to call it tonight. I'm going to let everything dry, and then I'm going to go over it again just in some areas. There's some small areas just kind of around here where you can just still see a little bit of the vinyl coming through, and I'll tidy up those. But I'm going to let it dry fully before I put another layer on. So I'm not going to go too thick or heavy with the next layer. I think it's about as thick as I like it, but I'm really, really happy with the way it's coming out. So. Alrighty guys, so it looks like all the major paintwork is done, and if we scan down we can actually see those nice little blue, soft blue highlights in the hair, just breaking up as we go along, all the way through that Spidey suit, and some of the shimmering off that suit from the diamonds, and we have a nice base and a nameplate which matches the Mary Jane. So we're looking good. We're going to have a look at the glamour shots. So guys, once again, thank you so much for watching. I always appreciate everything, all your support, all the comments that have come through. It's been nothing short of fantastic, so I really appreciate that. Of course, if there's something that you really like on here, if you've got something for it, I'd love you to click that like and subscribe button. That's just the sort of things that are going to help me be able to put more videos out and more content. And as this is a lot of fun for me, I love doing that, so I'd love to be a part of that. Until then, guys, thank you so much for watching Black Cat Amazing Spider-Man 607. Be good, be safe, and we'll see you next time. Take care.